They did, yeah. I could have been subway.
Subway Badmi.
Badmi.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashraf al-anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Wa ala alihi al-tahirin wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsan ila yawm al-din amma ba'd. Qala Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's more crowd than last time, but we had a big break and we didn't promote it enough. Because I was telling people today about the Seerah and they said they should have told us earlier.
We told them from 2 days ago.
Yeah, we couldn't send the messages. Well, alhamdulillah, it's fine. We need to remind ourselves why we hold the gatherings of Seerah, is to remind ourselves of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his sacrifices. And the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the individual who, inshallah, if we remember him and send salawat upon him, send salutations upon him, then he is the one who will intercede for us on the Day of Judgment. So I thought, rather than just moving on, because obviously the people who were here last time are not here, we'll just start from the beginning again, just as a recap, because we had like a 2-month interval. Inshallah, we'll start again about the Seerah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So last time we spoke about literal definition of Seerah. What is the Seerah? What does it mean to us, and how we can sort of understand the Seerah, and then what the sources of the Seerah are. Are the sources of the Seerah the internet, or the source of the Seerah books, or what are the sources of the Seerah? Inshallah, we'll discuss them. Okay. Okay, to start with, what's the definition of Seerah?
Life of the Prophet.
Life of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Are there any other definitions of Seerah? What does it include? What did the Seerah include?
Like how he lived his life, like the action he did.
Okay, one thing is the actions he did. That's part of the Seerah. What else is part of the Seerah?
The people he was involved with.
The people he was involved with. Did you listen to the previous session? Or you just, mashallah, putting your intelligence out there?
Intelligence is always higher, mate.
Engineer student, isn't it? You're not even capable to be in engineering building. Mashallah. Anyway, so the definition of Seerah, obviously we know that's why we're here, is to study the life of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And like you mentioned, the Seerah also includes the study of the life of those around the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when we study the Seerah, not only do we look into the life of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but we also look into the lives of those who surrounded the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And who were they? The Sahaba ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim ajma'in. So the Seerah is much about the life of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam as it is of the lives of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as it is the lives of the Sahaba. You know, the individual perspectives they had with the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the encounters they had with the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we truly realize the moral intelligence of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and wallahi how applicable the life of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even though he lived 1,400 years ago, his life is so applicable to us today. Even when the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to walk, I just experienced when I was walking in this building, just outside, I wasn't looking where I was going, and I'm walking, and you know, I've got my nice crepes here, Air Force One. I'm walking, and then there's a massive puddle in front of the building. I didn't see that. But if I had truly acted upon the Seerah and the life of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to walk, he used to look down, he used to walk. So if we adopted every practice of the life of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam into our lives, we wouldn't face these kind of problems. And it's also with dealing with people as well. And that's what we tend to forget. We think the Seerah is about stories. Yeah, it is about stories and understanding and putting ourselves where the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam was, but it's also taking lessons from those stories, applying those stories into our own lives in the 21st century today. In 2020 today, how can we act upon those messages of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Not just, you know, we mentioned one thing, his actions, his life, but it's also how his sayings, how he used to talk to people sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When the message, and through every single individual incident, we can kind of absorb these phenomena. How the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to talk to people. When the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to talk to an individual, when he used to talk to a group, it was as if he was talking to an individual. What do I mean by that? Meaning that if there was a room full of people, every single individual in that room would think the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is addressing them. That's how he used to make sallallahu alaihi wasallam people feel. And when the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to talk to people, he used to turn his full face towards them and he used to talk. You know, when the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam he saw that someone was sad, he used to make an extra effort to talk to them. When the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam thought, okay, where is so and so used to come to my gathering so much. كان رسول صلى الله عليه وسلم يتفقد عن أصحابه. He صلى الله عليه وسلم used to he used to know when someone's not here, and he used to ask about them. Where is so and so? And there's a famous incident where there was this lady, and she came to the Masjid Nabawi, and she was, you know, a slave of this family, and then some business happened, and you know, she sought refuge at the masjid, and she used to clean the masjid. And one day she had an illness and she passed away. Sorry. Okay, it's towards the way we can go in.
What was it?
I don't know. So, what was it talking Islam or something? What was it talking about? Engineering. So the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this individual lady, she was a slave lady, and you know, and she was still in society as, you know, not a great position in society. So one day she fell ill and she died suddenly. And what happened was the rest of the companions, they thought nothing of it. And you know, when someone dies, they would hasten the burial. So you know, they got her washed, shrouded, and they buried her. And you can come in. Oh.
So I was walking past the city and thought it's a mosque.
No, it's not a mosque, but we're doing a Seerah class.
You're doing a Seerah class?
Yeah.
He's a Muslim as well.
You can join, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. What's your name? What's your name?
Kieran, my Muslim name is Talib.
Nice to meet you. Ahmad. Nice to meet you. It's like we have, you know, this is a good room to have it because we have window shopping customers.
Yeah, the what's
We have.
yeah,
Sorry?
that's all good. We've not met you before.
No.
Okay, yeah, the prayer room's in Watts. Are you first year?
Yeah, first.
Okay, that's why. Yeah, the prayer room's in literally just there. We'll show you after if you want.
You did for Jummah as well.
Yeah. We'll speak to you after, inshallah. We'll sort it out. But alhamdulillah, this room is a good room to have it because we have window shoppers as well coming. So, you know, take the trade from downstairs as well, rather than having it in an isolated room. So we're talking about this lady, you know, she was a slave lady. At the time of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she suddenly passed away, and the Sahaba thought nothing of it. And you know, they shrouded her, they buried her, they washed her, and the next day and she used to sweep the masjid. So the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, where is this lady? And one of the Sahaba came to him and said, oh, she passed away and we buried her. And the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you know, he had a stern look on his face, and he's like, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me that this lady had passed away? And it just goes to show, even the most insignificant people in society at the time that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam was around, they held such a dear place as the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he taught us many things, and I think one thing that sort of shines out and really applicable today is the moral intelligence of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And last time I shared a story of Safwan ibn Umayyah, and Safwan ibn Umayyah was someone who is a real staunch enemy of Islam. He was a staunch enemy of Islam. And I said the scene was that the battle of Hunain had ended. It was a battle later on, we'll talk about this battle. But the tribe of Hawazin was defeated. And the spoils of the war, meaning the booty, you know, the things that have been left behind, they had been taken to the nearby place of Ji'irrana. And the individual we're talking about is an individual called Safwan ibn Umayyah. So Safwan ibn Umayyah, his father was one of the staunchest enemies of Islam, and he himself, because of that, you know, he was really showed a lot of animosity towards Islam. But this was later on, you know, when the Muslims had a huge number, and just 3 weeks before, the conquest of Mecca happened, and everyone just literally surrendered. Meaning those people who were really staunch enemies of Islam, when they saw, you know, the Muslims have come in droves now, and the incident of the conquest of Mecca was such that when a leader goes in and they conquer a nation, obviously we don't see it nowadays because it happens more like, you know, this kind of thing. That's how wars happen. But back in those days, when a leader used to conquer a place, the leader used to go in and they used to go upon their horse or upon their camel, and they used to, you know, put their chest up high because they're proud. They're proud that they've conquered this land. But the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he came into Makkah, and remember, he's coming into Makkah after being expelled. After being expelled all these years before, 13 years before he was expelled from Mecca. And now the Fathul Makkah is happening, the conquest of Mecca is happening, and he's on his horse, and he's got thousands of people with him. And now, it's time for him to be able to, crush those people who literally gave a lot of hurt. And they hurt the Muslims before, and they hurt him before, and they hurt his companions before. And as they're entering Mecca, they're looking at the place where Bilal radiallahu ta'ala, where he was dragged upon the hot coal. And this was the father of Umayyah, Safwan actually. His father Umayyah was the master of Bilal, and he was dragging Bilal radiallahu ta'ala on the hot coal. And he was saying, renounce your Lord, renounce your Lord. And Bilal kept on saying, Ahad, Ahad, one, denoting to the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He wouldn't renounce Allah. And they're walking past the site where Ammar is with them. Ammar's mother and father, Safiya and Yasir, they were the first martyrs of Islam. At the time, the leaders of the Quraysh, they tortured Ammar's mother and father, and they tied them to pillar and to post. And Ammar's father was the first male martyr of Islam, and his mother was the first female martyr of Islam. And they put an arrow, a spear, through Ammar's mother, and they're walking past this place. And now, now they have the ability. They're looking at the same people who years before they were tortured by, and they're in the position to crush them. And one of the Sahaba who was with them, he had the flag. So when an army comes to conquer a place, they have a flag, and he had a white flag, and he's entering, and because of the heat of the moment, he's saying, Al-yawmu yawmul malhama. Today's the day that we're going to show them. Today's the day of bloodshed, right? They're going to now find out what they did to us. They're going to have the repercussions and the results of that. Al-yawmu yawmul malhama. When the Messenger ﷺ heard this, he took the flag off him and he said, Al-yawmu yawmul marhama. Today is in fact the day of mercy. And he said to the people of the Quraysh that whoever goes to the Kaaba, whoever goes to the Haram, then they are aman, they are in peace, they are safe, no one will touch them. Whoever goes to the house of Abu Sufyan was the staunchest enemy of Islam. Whoever goes to his house and seeks refuge, no one's going to touch them. Whoever goes in their own house and closes the door, no one's going to harm them, right? Whoever's, today I'm going to say to you the words that Yusuf alayhi salam said to his brothers. Yusuf alayhi salam said to his brothers when he was on top. He was the governor and the king of Egypt at the time. He said, "La tathriba alaykum al-yawm." Today there's no repercussion on you today. There is no retribution upon you today. Idhabu antum at-tulaqa. That go today because you are free. So this was the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the conquest of Mecca. Despite that, this individual Safwan ibn Umayyah, he refused to surrender. He refused to surrender, but the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam still gave him 4 months of amnesty, meaning you can go. You got time to think about it. When no one's going to touch you. This Safwan ibn Umayyah. But for the last 20 years, Safwan ibn Umayyah he's grown up being a staunch enemy of Islam. And and the reasons why he was such a staunch enemy of Islam, and at this time, he's never looked at the face of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's never got to know the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Maybe he knows of the Messenger, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam came down, the man Muhammad, he's preaching towards one Lord. He knows of him, but he never got to know the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam's character. He never got to know who the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam was. His father Umayyah, was the man who tortured Bilal radiallahu ta'ala. When Bilal himself, got his own revenge, and he killed his father Umayyah in the Battle of Badr. So this was before this incident. So he's already got a lot of animosity towards the Muslim. His friend Ikrima ibn Abi Jahl, who's Abu Jahl's son. This was one of his closest friends growing up. He had also accepted Islam. And a few months before that, Khalid bin Walid, who was also one of his best friends, one of his closest boys and allies, Khalid bin Walid embraced Islam, and he was begging Safwan ibn Umayyah. He said he was begging him, come to Medina. That's it. Islam is going to be, the ruling nation, the ruling religion now, and you're not going to survive by fighting it. Just come with us now. Just come. And Safwan, he refused, even though Khalid bin Walid begged him. And Safwan even said that even if every man from the Quraysh followed the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I would never give in to him, and I would never follow him. Despite this, after the Battle of Hunayn, the Hawazin tribe was defeated. Again, I'm saying the scene, the spoils of war were available there. The Messenger ﷺ awarded Safwan 200 camels from the spoil of war. And Safwan is wondering why. And Safwan is looking onto the ravine in Ji'rana, and he is seeing the wealth that the tribe had left behind. And for the first time, he looks into the eyes of the Messenger ﷺ, because at this point, the Messenger ﷺ, he refused. This Safwan, he was a big enemy of Islam. He was a big enemy of Islam, and at this point, he is refusing to accept Islam. And for 20 years, he was an enemy of Islam. And the Messenger ﷺ just gives him 200 camels, and he didn't even partake in the battle, nor was he a Muslim. For the first time, Safwan looks into the eyes of the Messenger ﷺ, and he says that no soul could have this amount of goodness except if it were the soul of the Messenger of a Prophet, except if it were the soul of a Prophet. And he accepted Islam at this point. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. So this was an individual, for 20 years he had animosity towards Islam. He was one of the, in today's world, in today's language, he was one of the most right people who were on the rightest of wings. He was a really right-wing individual, right? He didn't want to hear it. Islam, he didn't want to hear it. He was the staunchest of enemies against Islam. But later on, he got to know the Messenger ﷺ, and this is why he accepted Islam. Every single companion had traveled a unique path when suddenly they were jolted into the orbit of the Messenger ﷺ, and they had this magical moment where they accepted Islam. And for every single companion, it was different. Because Safwan knew of the Messenger, as I mentioned, but he didn't get to know who the Messenger ﷺ was. And the problem is the reasons that Muslims and non-Muslims alike, why we find it hard to sort of live by the way of Islam and the Sunnah of the Messenger ﷺ, the way he has left behind for us, is because we see the life of the Messenger ﷺ in snapshots. We know an incident here and there, but we can't string it all together. And this is one of the purposes of this class, is stringing together the life of the Messenger ﷺ, looking at every single incident and seeing what we can take away from that incident, not just reading it for the sake of reading stories. When the Messenger ﷺ, when he was in a position of power, right, like in the Fathul Makkah, why did he opt for mercy? And these are the questions we ask ourselves, and we really truly get to know the Messenger ﷺ after asking these questions. Because you can only truly appreciate the choices that the Messenger ﷺ made once you really get to know him. So we mentioned as well, another purpose of the Seerah, when I was talking about the definition of the Seerah, you mentioned, is the companions, the people around the Messenger ﷺ, the men and women who were around the Messenger ﷺ. So the Seerah is as much about the journey of the companions as it is about the life of the Messenger ﷺ. It's about the transformations of the Sahaba, the noble qualities that rubbed off on them just by virtue of the prophetic presence. Just by being in the gathering of the Messenger ﷺ, they had qualities that rubbed off on them. But regardless of the paths they took, their destination was the same. At each stage of his life, the Messenger ﷺ had this unique effect on the people around him. And we see it even during his childhood when he didn't receive prophethood. On the effect, we see the qualities of the Messenger ﷺ being rubbed off on those around him. When we look into example, the benevolence of his foster mother Halima, he was a baby when he was with her, but she was benevolent, and this was in fact a manifestation of the qualities of the Messenger ﷺ. We see it later on in the tenderness of Khadija, someone who was so close to the Messenger ﷺ that even years after her death, when the younger companions who had never met Khadija used to ask the Messenger ﷺ about Khadija, tell us something about Khadija, you always talk about her, but describe her to us. They used to say, Khadija, the Messenger ﷺ used to say about Khadija, Khadija kanat or kanat. He used to say Khadija was, there's no words to describe her. And the Messenger ﷺ used to stutter when he used to talk about Khadija. And later on, when they were in Medina, a gift came to the Messenger ﷺ. So a really nice, silky, expensive shawl. the equivalent of the Versace of today, came into the it was gifted to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam told Anas ibn Malik, Anas, come here, go to such and such a street where you meet this old lady, go and give her this shawl. And the wives of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam were looking, and they were thinking, this gift has been gifted to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We would have thought that it would have been given to one of us. And Anas, he was obviously curious as well, and he said, who is this lady? And the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied that she was one of the friends of Khadija. So you can see the effect that Khadija had on the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he was so close to her that even the people who are around Khadija, who reminded the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam of Khadija, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam still remembered her years after she had passed away. We see it in the tenderness of Khadija, the qualities of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We see it in the allegiance of Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu. He was a staunch supporter of Islam. Even when he was very young and tender, he was a supporter of Islam. We see it in the loyalty of his uncle Hamza. We see it in the trustworthiness of his friend Abu Bakr. We see it in the bravery of his beloved companion Talha. And we see it in the patience of Abu Ja'far. We see in the wisdom of even one of the younger companions, Ibn Umar. He aspired them to be the best versions of themselves and to achieve this greatness. So the second reason why we study Seerah is to follow the journeys of the companions. Why else? What are the other reasons for studying Seerah? I think I might have jumped ahead. Yeah. What are the other reasons for studying Seerah? Why do we study the Seerah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
Sorry, like you said earlier, so we can adapt what was then into now.
Yeah, we can adapt, we can learn, and act upon the Seerah. Why else? Oh, you were thinking the same thing. So it's living the Seerah, and by living the Seerah, becoming better Muslims. This is another purpose of studying the Seerah, because the examples given in the Seerah are indeed timeless. The Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was an exemplar model to humanity. And when we talk about, the interesting thing is, when we talk about these modern desirable attributes that people have, you have these self-help books that say, books that our friend Fahim reads. There was a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. This is a famous book as well. These sort of books, they give these tips, for success, these desirable attributes, the attribute of time management. It's a really desirable attribute that's sought out today. But if we actually look into the life of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all of these desirable attributes can be derived from the life of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Kana Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to divide his time. He used to divide his time into three portions. Juz'un li Rabbihi. A portion of his time was divided for Allah, for worship. Juz'un li ahlihi. A portion of his time was given for his family. Wa juz'un li nafsi. And a portion of his time was given to himself to sleep. Right? ثم جزأ جزءه لنفسه بينه وبين الناس. But even after dividing his time into three, his time that he had for himself, he used to divide this time between him and the people. He used to give the people their rights from his own rights. When we look about the Nabi, when we look to the qualities, the desirable qualities, we see a quality of communication skills. How do we communicate with people? Thousands of books have been written on this topic. There's lectures available. We're taught in university as well how to communicate with people, because it's a desirable attribute. See, even I'm struggling now. But if we look back at the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam's example, when the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to speak to people, he used to speak in full expressions, right? He used to repeat things, the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so the people would understand them. He used to speak to the people upon their level. He used to speak to the people in their accents. Once a Bedouin man came to the presence of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was asking a question. And the companions didn't have a clue what he was saying. It's like someone from Bradford or Birmingham coming and speaking. Like, oh, what are you on about, mate? So these Sahaba, they didn't have a clue what this man was saying. And so they took him to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We don't have a clue, some Bradford. No, we don't have a clue. So the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this man was saying, "Ambrun siyam safar," and this is how it's recorded in the hadith books as well. Ambrun siyam safar. And we're thinking, what does that even mean? And the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Laysa min birrin siyam fi safar." So he said, "Amin birrin siyamun fi safar." Is it a good thing to fast whilst you're traveling? And the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Laysa min birrin siyamun fi safar." It's not really a good thing or desirable thing to fast. Obviously, this is a masala in and of itself. But the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam giving advice to this individual, but he spoke to him in his own accent. Maybe we shouldn't attempt that because we can't speak a different language, because when you're from Bradford, you speak a different language. But laysa min birrin siyam fi safar. So these are the communication skills of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When we look at the mannerisms of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he himself said, "Innama bu'ithtu li utammima makarim al-akhlaq." I have been sent to perfect noble qualities, to perfect characteristics, to perfect the adab of how you deal with people. So the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when we look at his desirable attributes, the list just goes on. And he sallallahu alaihi wasallam really taught us not how to just become good Muslims, but how to really be good human beings. So these are this is the purpose of studying the Seerah. One more purpose that I've written and we talked about last time is we study the Seerah every single time to resolve our inner conflicts and struggles regarding the material. What do I mean by that? There are so many points in the Seerah where non-Muslims ask us, we ask ourselves that how do we, this doesn't make sense according to our modern, maybe postmodern humanistic understandings of good and bad. This is kind of bad. Why would the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam do this? But the reasons why we ask ourselves these questions is because we don't know the context of these incidents. So we didn't get to know the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because to know an individual, the reason why they make choices is to truly get to know them. For example, why did young Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam feel so disillusioned whilst he was in Mecca? He felt he had to isolate himself, go away and meditate in a cave. Why did he feel the need to do that? Why did he sallallahu alaihi wasallam condone caravan raiding? Because if you see later on, some of the battles happened because the Muslim had raided a caravan. Why would he condone caravan raiding? Why did Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, why did he allow his Sahaba to take war captives? Isn't this against the mercy, general mercy? Whilst you claim that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the ultimate mercy to mankind. Why sallallahu alaihi wasallam, why did he forgive his most fierce of opponents? Because at the time where he could crush them, he chose the option of forgiveness. Why did he do that? Why was he worried? Why was he in a state of worry? Right? Because Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was constantly in the state of worry. Kana Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam da'im al-fikr mutawasil al-ahzan. By him, he used to always be in a state of contemplation, and he used to, grief used to hit him one after the other. So brothers come from London.
Oh. He's sniffling. I think we should get the mask on.
Brothers come from London. So why is it that why did the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, why was he worried if he knew ultimately he would succeed because he had Allah on his side and Allah promised him he would succeed? So why was he in a state of worry? We ask ourselves these questions, and it's really the purpose of studying this, to reconcile this between ourselves, because how can we explain to others if we have these questions ourselves? Why is it that the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, why didn't he stop the executions of the Jews of Banu Qurayza, which was this particular tribe? I know they were executed. Why? Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam had the opportunity to stop this execution. Why didn't he do it? These things that we might think are right or we might think are wrong, we need to have a real realization for these sort of questions. And this is the purpose of studying the Seerah. And it's really to have our own shared journey and experience with the Seerah material. And we said last time it would be like a book club, and Abdul Habib was meant to share the book, but he didn't. I did ask you. You sure? Okay, now I've asked you. Mashallah, this brother read this book. The Seerah will be based on the book, PDF format, inshallah, the life of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam by Martin Links. Inshallah, we'll discuss it. And there's a few things obviously we disagree with in that book, and we'll look into that and why we disagree with them based on the authenticity of the reports, etc. But he read this in how many days? But he never reads books, but he read this book really fast. It's my recommendation, right? Oh, yeah. Okay. I thought I'd take that. Okay, so this is what we're going to base on. Inshallah, we'll share it on the ISOC groups, this particular book. So, okay, I think next time, okay, let's just finish. Okay. All right. I think we just covered the purpose of studying Seerah today and the sources of the Seerah. So the sources of the Seerah are the Quran, obviously, because the Quran, every single verse of the Quran is contextual, and the context of the Quran is the life of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So to truly understand the Quran and the verses of the Quran, some of them don't really make sense if they're in isolation. So to know the context of the Quran is to know the Seerah. So even the companions would say, the younger companions would say that, we were taught the Seerah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam just as we were taught the Quran. So two things they were taught side by side, the Quran and the Seerah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These are the younger companions. And there are some sources of Seerah which are the lost books. You have a lot of material which is lost, but the main Seerah is the Seerah of Ibn Ishaq, Ibn Hisham, and you have another type of Seerah which is the Shama'il, and this is Muhammad runs the classes on Shama'il on Tuesdays on the Sufis campus. But the Shama'il of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is really intertwined with the Seerah, and it's about the physical attributes and the inner attributes of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So these are the Shama'il, and as we go through the Seerah, we're going to discuss the Shama'il also. There's another genre of books called the Dala'il, the proofs of prophethood. This is a genre of text talking about the miraculous nature of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this also, is part and parcel of the Seerah. And then we have the Hadith, and the Hadith books are quite extensive in talking about the Seerah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it's quite in depth when it goes into the individual incidents and reports of what happened day to day during the life of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is the sources of the Seerah. We talked about the definition of Seerah, and these are the purposes of the Seerah, which we spoke about. Okay. Shall we continue next time, or should we?
I think we've only got 15 minutes left.
Okay, we'll go until the building closes. Okay, so I think next time what we'll do, inshallah, we'll start on to go and talk about Ibrahim alayhi salam, one of the grandfathers of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and how they actually got to this part of the world. So just to end with this, okay, so we need to talk about Arabian history to find out why do we even need to talk about the Arabs? Why do we need to talk about the Arabs when we talk about Seerah? You know the answer, because we don't want to speak about it. Why do we need to talk about the Arabs? They're just a group of people.
To know what was around them, so the opposition they may have faced.
The opposition, yeah, but
opposition
why do the Arabs hold significance when we talk about the Seerah? Because they're just a group of people, and in Islam we don't really care about nationality or.
Because the Prophet was born in where they
region.
Okay. Why else? Why do you think we need to know about the Arabs?
The Arabic language, which is the language of the Quran.
Okay, you're hinting at it, but why we need to actually know about the Arabs is because we need to know the context of revelation. Who was the Quran sent to? Who was the primary audience of revelation? Right? Obviously, the Quran has a mass audience, right, which is every person to come, and everyone has their own relationship with the Quran. But the primary audience of the Quran, to know the context of revelation, is to know the Arabs. And when we talk about Arabian history, we have three types of Arabs. Are you Arab? Are you Arab?
Yeah.
So, we have some Arab and some Arab. You're Arab. Urdun, Arab. Palestine, Arab. I'm joking. So you have three types of Arabs, right? You have the perished Arab, Al-Arab al-Badiya. You have the pure Arabs, Al-Arab al-Ariba, and you have the Arabized Arabs, Al-Arab al-Musta'arib. Yeah, I'm Arab al-Musta'arib. So you have, the Arabized Arabs. What do I mean by that? The perished Arabs were the tribes of Ad and Thamud. And these are really who the Quran talks about, the tribes of Ad and Thamud. Thamud came before, and they were more north, right? And these were ancient civilization 2,000 years ago. Thousands of years ago, they existed. And after them, the tribe of Ad came, and they had their individual prophets as well. Yeah, they had Ad and Thamud. You had Hud alayhi salam, who was sent to this tribe, and they disobeyed, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent punishments to them, and this is what's recorded. We know about them because the Quran actually tells us about them, and they had punishments, with a strong wind and fireballs from the sky because they disobeyed the messenger. But the Quran does talk about them. And what happened was, at the end, they were destroyed, and this is why we the perished Arabs. But they were the original Arabs, and they, when we talk about Adam alayhi salam and his, the Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, Nuh had 3 sons, Sam, Ham, and Yafith, and it's the Semites that come from Sam. That's why the word Semite comes from, and this is where Ibrahim alayhi salam and really the other prophets come from, because they're Semite comes from Nuh alayhi salam's son Sam, because obviously before Nuh, or the people who were with Nuh alayhi salam, they died in the flood, right? Because there was a famous flood that happened, and everyone was extinct except for the progeny of Nuh and the people that followed Nuh. So Nuh's son Sam. So this Ad and Thamud, they were wiped out because of obviously wars that happened and because of they were destroyed. So this is Al-Arabul Badiya. Then you have Al-Arabul Ariba, who were the Banu Qahtan. So you have the children of Qahtan, who some people say that Al-Qahtan was from the progeny of Ibrahim alayhi salam, but some people say no, they were distantly related. They had some, they were Semites, because Ibrahim alayhi salam was a Semite, one of the offspring of Sam. Later on, obviously, so many hundreds and thousands of years later. But you have Banu Qahtan, who are known as the pure Arabs, and then you have Al-Arabul Ariba, those people who became Arab by mixing with the pure Arab, Al-Arab al-Musta'riba. So obviously you have some Arabs today who, they can trace their lineage back to the pure Arabs. No one can trace their lineage back to the perished Arabs, because why? They're gone, they're perished off the face of the earth. So you can trace your lineage back to the pure Arabs, but the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam was from Al-Arab al-Musta'riba, because Ismail alayhi salam married into a tribe, the Jurhum tribe, the daughter of the chief of the Jurhum tribe, and from them, generations down, 7 to 10 generations down, they had a child called Adnan, and 20 generations later, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born. So the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam's lineage is from the Arabized Arabs, Al-Arabul Musta'riba. So the reasons, obviously this is, you think, what's the point of knowing this? But there are reasons, because to know the tribes that came out from Al-Arab al-Musta'riba, there were different tribes. An individual was a son from the Arab al-Musta'riba, for example, the Al-Khuza'a. So you have from his offspring the Banu Khuza'a. And later on, you have the tribes of Aus and Khazraj. And these, when we talk in the life of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they played huge parts, and you can see the dynamic as well. And to understand this dynamic is why we need to understand where they were in the Arabian Peninsula, and who they actually were. So you can see here in the tribes of Himyar, and then these tribes actually divided into several tribes, and they settled in several places in Arabia. The Khuza'a tribe are actually the tribe that settled in the Meccan region, and you have Al-Tay, Ghassan, Lakham, and these actually bordered the Romans, and later on we'll find out what influence these tribes had to the journey of the Muslims. But obviously this was that in a nutshell, but we'll go into detail next time. So I think next time we'll cover Ibrahim alayhi salam, the life of Ibrahim in quite a bit of detail, and then going on, moving swiftly on to the reason why we need to know about these particular tribes, and then going on to the father of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the grandfather of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the tribe of Quraysh, and how they became one of the prominent tribes of the area. And we'll find out about the well of Zamzam, how the well of Zamzam was actually lost for so many years, and why it was lost. And then the grandfather of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam having a dream and an angel telling him where the Zamzam was, and he wakes up and he actually finds the well of Zamzam and the significance of Zamzam as well. And we'll discover the sacrifices of Ibrahim alayhi salam and the sacrifices of his wife, Hajar, and then her struggles when she had to go from mountain to mountain, the Safa and Marwa, in search of water. And we'll clarify some misconceptions as well, because when we talk about the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, unfortunately, a lot of the biblical stories have crept into our Islamic tradition. And a lot of people think, for example, Hajar was a slave girl. And this is a common sort of misunderstanding. Ismail alayhi salam was an illegitimate child. So we'll answer these misconceptions, and then we'll move forward from that. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our journey in the seerah, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept this as a sadaqah jariyah, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala